As an academy owner, you work hard to build trust with your students, their parents, and your community. But trust isn't something you claim, it's something you prove and earn. That's where Academy Safe comes in. We help academies like yours stand out with verified safety standards. Background checks for all staff, U.S. Center for Safe Sport certification, concussion training, defibrillators on site, CPR, first aid and AED certification, security cameras, rank and lineage checks, and verification of business insurance. Join the trusted martial arts registry that's redefining safety throughout North America. Lead by example. Show parents you're accredited with Academy Safe.
Hello, and welcome to My Empty Hands, a podcast about the martial arts, typically with a focus on Kenpo. As always, I am Reggie Darden, and I am excited to have another wonderful guest with me today. I've got Mr. Ron White, and we are going to talk about his journey in Kenpo and whatever other items that we decide to get onto. We'll get into that as well. I usually start things off by just giving a little brief background of me. I'm currently training in 5 different martial arts, American Kenpo being the primary one, but I also train in Hapkido, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and Capoeira. I also have some experience in Taekwondo and did a little boxing in my time in the Army, but that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. So we're now going to turn it over to our guest here. Go ahead and fill me and our listeners in on where did it all start for you? Where did the martial arts find you? Where did Kenpo find you? And we'll just go from there.
Well, as a boy growing up, I had 3 older brothers who all went to the Marine Corps back in the early 70s, and one of my brother, Danny, he was involved with martial arts back when I was probably about 10 years old when he started messing around with it, that type of deal, and Karen introduced me to a little bit of it. When he went to the Marine Corps, he'd come home on leave, and he'd just kind of work with me on what we call backyard karate back in them days, and he was involved with Kenpo at that point in time. I had went out to California a few times and stayed with him out there, and his instructor was Joe Demick out of Yucca Valley, California, out there because he was teaching at 29 Palms, California. And I went to his school a few times out there, and like I say, my brother come home on leave, and then when he got out of the Marine Corps, he opened up a little small school in a little small town called Hayesville, Kansas, up there by Wichita, and I studied underneath him and got my first degree black belt through him back in 1979. And as life takes a hold of people at times in their life, you kind of drift in and out, and that's what I was doing, drifting in and out by the time I moved on with my life, graduating high school, and moving on, getting married, a couple of times, and back Wichita, and I ran into Seabaton College School and American Kenpo there in Wichita, and I studied underneath him for a few years and competed underneath him, for a few years there, and life has it, went through a kind of a nasty divorce, and I ended up here in Pittsburgh, Kansas, now where I'm at now. I've been here approximately 35 years now, and I when I tried to seek out a Kenpo school around here, and there just wasn't any in this small town. You did a Taekwondo or a Japanese style they have here, but I proceed to keep trying to do Kenpo on my own. I went to some competition around here. I got a hold of a gentleman, accidentally got a hold of him by phone, and he just happened to have the SWAT circuit tournament going on, the Southwest Association of Tournaments, and he invited me to come to the tournaments, and I went to their tournaments and represented the SWAT circuit for a while, or quite a while, for a lot of years, and I continued training in Kenpo and met a few friends, throughout my journey in Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, and all kinds of stuff. Just trained with them and learned some different things with each one of those individuals. And in the meantime, while I was here in Pittsburgh, Kansas, kind of doing my own thing, I had ran across the Karate Connection, and I started doing their program and ended up getting my third-degree black belt certification underneath them on their program. Opened up a school with them and here in Pittsburgh for a little while, and kind of moved on for a little bit and doing my own thing and still representing tournaments and representing White's Kenpo and that type of deal. And then I guess the Karate Connection had some issues going on with COVID, stuff like that. And then when they started trying to get their act back together, they had contacted me and talked to me about joining back up with them. And I decided, yeah, why not? I'll do that. And Dave and Steve, the Karate Connection, been real good guys and have really backed me up and helped me out and with the association of what I'm doing. I don't actually have a school going on now. I just train down in my basement. I got my little workout room, as you can see, where I'm at right now. And I work with a few people, a few students and stuff, but down here, I'm not, like I said, I teach for free and just to be doing it, try to stay active in it, that type of deal. And I required those students to be members of the Karate Connection, which they are. I did own a couple of schools downtown at one time here in Pittsburgh, and my youngest son and I taught the Lincoln Center here in Pittsburgh, Kansas, for like 11 years. And then we decided to go ahead and shut it down because they really wasn't backing our program like they really should have, like they were to other programs that had gone on. And it got to where we only had like 2 or 3 students when we was used to having 25 to 30, sometimes 30, 35 students in those classes. And out of the 11 years there, we held 7 karate tournaments here in Pittsburgh, underneath the city of Pittsburgh. Still continued with the SWAT Association, being members of them and supporting them. When I had my first 2 schools downtown here in Pittsburgh, not at the same time, I started out downtown and then I moved from one building to another. And I was down there, downtown, I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 years, something like that. But my wife, she developed cancer, 3 different types of cancer all at once. And during our second school, and I had to shut it down, and I just kind of took everything back home, started teaching out my garage again, and ended up having to go out and actually get a full-time job, and that just kind of took away from the martial arts area for me, which, not no problem because we had to get her taken care of. We fought that, and that was about 23 years ago, and shoot, we won that. She's still with me today. Teaching at Lincoln Center, teaching that at the schools in Lincoln Center, we met a lot of good people and had a lot of good turnouts at the tournaments that we'd take, and we'd possibly be taking between 20, 30 students at a time to competition, and we'd always win. A lot of times, well, pretty much a time we win the top school awards, and when I was competing, it was all about me doing my thing at the time. Then it got to where I just didn't want to compete no more, and started having my 4 boys compete and concentrate on them and concentrate on my students, that type of thing. And my goal was just taking as many students as I could to the tournament to win that top school award. That was my goal on that part. Then, just like I said, just got to the point of where we was focusing way too much on tournaments and students. I felt the students weren't really progressing like they should. So we kind of pulled back from that and started, getting concentrating on our students in the actual classroom and getting them promoted like they're supposed to and learning Kenpo like they're supposed to. But as far as the tournaments go, we had some really good times going to tournaments. We would, it was really fun after we had the tournament. It's really a blast of fun that we'd go to Pizza Hut or something like that afterwards to, eat and be with one another and talk about the day and have a good time. But we would always have all the little ones bringing their trophies with us. We'd set them up on the cover tables around us where we was eating at. And just, a wife and I would go to doors and we'd open up the doors and let all the kids come in with their trophies and just listen to the crowd of the people inside sitting down eating, especially the elderly people. They would all be talking about like, oh, look at that little one right there with their trophy. And, that trophy's bigger than this one right here. Yes, little girl, little boy. And just see the kids' eyes light up when they'd walk in there carrying their trophies. Some would be carrying one, some would be carrying 3 or 4, that type from that day. And they'll just be packed with them as they's going in. But just the people that in there eating, the comments that you could hear and that type of thing, which really inspiring. It was good to hear it. Sometimes, there would be people where we'd go sit down and get situated, and there would be people walk up and talk to us while we was there, ask us where we're from, and ask about the trophies, how many kids, just different questions, that type of thing. We tried to answer them best we could, to smile, shake their hand, introduce ourselves, and talk a little bit, and they would go separate ways. But we did that quite a bit. That was one of the things that we really enjoyed about going to competition, and who's afterwards actually going out to have pizza together, that type of deal. A lot of the parents that supported us, grandparents that supported us, my hat goes off to them, just to have them there at the tournaments and watching some of them, how they acted on the sideline, when their child was competing and stuff. It was, kind of eye-opening and funny to watch them because they were just flat getting into it, hard and that type of thing. There'd been times that my students had to compete against each other, fighting in the sparring event, and having their grandparents or their parents on each side of the ring holler for them. It was really inspiring to have them not just holler for their child, they would holler for the other one too, because we were teammates and that type of thing. So they was both sides pushing each other for each side, that type of thing. And to hear some of them out there just, hard, get them, type thing was pretty fun. It was exciting, very, very exciting. But we did a lot of that over the years on the tournament thing. We had a young lady by the name of Jensen Duff, who a lot of the girls did not like getting into the ring with her because Jensen really wasn't a small child for her age. She was a pretty good sized young lady. And she had an awesome roundhouse kick that would just fire right up. And she did really good. But she met a lot of good competitors, and they became friends on the years. And Jensen now, she's a grown woman, married. And I see her out in public around here in Pittsburgh, and we talk. And she is still friends with some of them from back in the day. Talks to them quite a bit. Then we got a young lady by the name of Kiera Miller. She was a little tiny thing, but boy, I tell you what, she was quick. There'd been times that she didn't have anybody in her division to compete against, so we ended up putting her in with the boys, and she'd have some of them boys going out there crying. She had a couple of them just didn't want to get in the ring with her because she was furious. he'd get in there and do her business and get after her. There was one little boy one time that their coach and her mom, or his mom and dad, had to really coach him to get in that ring with her. And he was crying. He did. That poor little guy just did not want to get in there. But he got in there and he gave it his best shot, but she popped him. She got him. And but then I got a little guy by the name of Connor Parker. The competition that sticks out the most with him was Connor was a real little bitty fella. He was a little guy. Kind of like my one of my middle son, Matt. He was always a little guy in competition. There was one time that I was at another ring and looking at a couple of my students, and I just happened to look over it, and I seen Connor in his ring, and he was going against a little boy that was like, God, I'm not kidding when I say that this little boy was like 4 times his size. They were the same age, that he was a big kid. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I went running over there to stop that fight because something just was not right there. I mean, we're looking at a kid that's probably stood 5'5", and he weighed about 200 pounds. I was like, whoa, Connor barely stood a little over 3 foot. He weighed probably not even 50 pounds. And they were both 10 years old. And I went running over the holler, stop that fight, stop, whoa, something's wrong here. Supreme Grandmaster Willie Parch came walking up to me and he was laughing. And he goes, Mr. White, he says, they're the same age. I said, there ain't no way. And he said, we had to bring his birth certificate with us to show how old he was. And here come the Supreme Grandmaster Aaron Wright, which was the uncle of Mr. Parts, and real good friends of mine. That's true. I got my 10th grade black belt through in Kenpo Kochu, the Jiu-Jitsu, and they both walk up and they're just laughing. They say, it's true. And I'm like, whoa, no, it ain't. They said, we had to bring the birth certificate. And I was like, okay. And I know these two gentlemen were not going to, pull my leg, lie to me, or anything like that. So I took it at face value. Yeah, they're telling the truth. I'm like, okay, well, give me a second to talk to Connor, because Connor's both his eyes as big as softballs. He's looking up this guy like, I gotta fight this guy. I told him, I said, okay, Connor, come here, buddy. Come here, listen to me. I said, what I want you to do is we're going to give it our best shot, win, lose, or draw. I said, what I want you to do is I want you to lean back on that right leg, and I want you to cup that right hand. And I want you to get as low to the ground as you think you can get without laying down. And when he reaches down to try to strike you and he misses and he recoils that arm, I want you to spring forward and hit him right in the midsection and scream as loud as you can every time you do that. I said, if you do that, I said, I can almost guarantee you're going to win. And he goes, are you serious? Well, I said, I'm positive. In the back of my mind, I'm like, oh no, I hope I'm right. I hope I'm right. So he got in there and he got way down to the floor, and then when he did exactly what I said, and that guy reached down to try to pop him, and he threw his shoulder up and missed him. Connor sprung right up and caught him right in the midsection. And they hollered, he screamed loud. They hollered, Bray, gave me a point. He looked at me with big eyes and a smile face like, I did it. I said, I told you. Keep doing that. Keep doing it. Yeah, he kept doing it, and he actually won that fight. And I was sitting there sweating bullets. But when that fight was done, I wiped my forehead and looked at his parents, shook my head like, thank God, and I just walked away. He came round up to me about 15 minutes later, showing me his trophy. I believe he got like a second place trophy that day. Showing me his trophy. That little guy was just happy as he can be that he actually beat that guy. So that's one of them that sticks out of my head quite a bit. Karen Miller and Jensen Duff, or the way they were. There's a few other ones out there. Try to think off the top of my head. I've taught so many
Well,
of them.
I want to go ahead and kind of roll it back to your side of the story. So you've run a number of schools over the years. I want to go back to was teaching something that you always wanted to get into, and or was it thrust upon you, and kind of what was the genesis of wanting to run your own schools?
Well, basically, I've always been interested in martial arts since I was a kid, from Bruce Lee days, all that business, like any other kid or person. Uh, just having a couple of brothers who was involved in it, them coming home, working with me, like I say, backyard karate, until Danny came home and opened up a school in Wichita and Hayesville there. I taught at his school. I was a junior high as a brown belt teaching his school. And like I say, it was one of those things that like kids old, after I graduated high school and moved on, that type of thing. Then I ran into Mr. Kelly's school and I got back into it. I always still worked out in it, on my own at home, in the backyard, that type of thing. Being married to my first and my second wife, always done that. Then when I started at Mr. Kelly's school, it was back in, I don't know if you ever heard of it, but there was a tornado that hit Andover, Kansas back in the 90s, early 90s. And, well, it hit my house before it hit Andover, Kansas. I lived there on the south side of Wichita, between Hayesville and Wichita, in a little small community called Oakland. And or Cottage Grove, my bad. Cottage Grove, Oakland is up there by Kansas City. But Cottage Grove, and me and my second wife and two little ones had just moved into that house. Hadn't even been there not in 2 weeks, still had stuff packed. And we were sitting there one evening, and she was cooking dinner, and it came over to the cable office that we need to take cover because there's a tornado coming. And my wife at the time, Michelle, my second wife, she came in there and she heard it, and she goes, "You think we ought to clean that closet out so we can get into it?" And I looked outside, and there was sunshine. There was nothing going on. And I said, "No, ain't no big deal." And was sitting there for a few minutes. I just got this uneasy feeling, and I went over and I looked out the kitchen window, and I couldn't see. Everything just looked fine. I went out the front door and I looked up above my house, and when I did, there was a tornado coming right at my house, just on the next block. So I yanked the screen door off the door, and I grabbed all my kids and run, thinking we could run down the road and lay down by a fence or grab a hold and lay on the kids, and they could just go on by. But we didn't go and make it that far. We ended up running into our neighbor's house and going to his closet, and we just stayed there. But when the tornado hit, it just tore my house up. But the reason why I tell that part of the story is because about a month or two prior to that, we had went to El Dorado, Kansas, with Mr. Kelly and Kelly's Kenpo. I believe it was El Dorado. No, No, I take it back. It was Central Park Classic in Topeka, Kansas, I believe. And I got a third place trophy in fighting that day. And it's my very first trophy. It ain't very big. It's about yay tall. And I fought 5 fights back to back. I was in one ring and had to compete, and went over another ring, and I got 60 seconds break, and I had to compete, and I did just bouncing back and forth like that. Well, I ended up getting third place, and I was the only one that brought home a trophy that day at Mr. Kelly's school, and there was quite a few of us that went. That trophy I took and I set it on top of my TV, and I had my TV up on a stereo stand up high, so the kids, when their kids were playing, they weren't actually in front of the TV. I had it up high on my stereo stand, next to my stereo stand, but that trophy sat on the very, very top of that. So I had it out. Well, when the tornado came through and he hit my house and wiped my house completely out, we walked out of our neighbor's house. I looked over, and my house was just destroyed. And I walked over, over some rubble, over to my house into the front yard. And I know it sounds kind of strange or funny, but the sunlight coming out of the clouds was shining right down on top of that trophy, and that trophy was still sitting on my TV while everything else was just destroyed and slung out my yard and across the street. My TV and stereo was still there, and that trophy was still set on top of the TV, and the light was gleaming down on it, and it was shining. And I was like, wow, check that out. Kind of caught my eye, and I walked over and I grabbed my trophy, and I looked around, and I looked at my second wife, and I said, is this a sign, something telling me this is what I'm supposed to do in life? And she just kind of nodded her head and like, maybe so. Well, that right there, I just basically took that as a sign that the good Lord above was telling me this is what I'm supposed to do. And I've been doing it ever since. I've been doing it. Like I say, I ended up leaving Wichita with their nasty divorce. Left Wichita, came here to Pittsburgh, Kansas, and I was a single parent at the time with 2 little guys, and I got a few people and started, teaching them. And I was teaching my dining room of one of my houses here in Pittsburgh. But the thing of it is, I was just teaching them what I knew at the time, and I just was teaching them for free. I had a group of guys coming over that I was working out with, and I was taking them to competition, but I mainly was doing it so I can have somebody to work out with, that type of thing. And my wife now, when her and I met each other at a place called National Mills that made T-shirts, like Tommy Hilfiger and all those kind of, name brand T-shirts. We made them at that particular company, National Mills. Well, that's where her and I met. And we started seeing each other. She moved in with me, and there was one night while we was in class, and I was teaching, and we were sparring and just this and that, stuff like that. And she just looked at me and she said, I'm not trying to be funny or anything. Again, it's really none of my business, but she goes, is that curious? Are they paying you for this? And I was like, I said, no, I said, we're just a group of guys who get together, and I teach them, I take them to competition, somebody I can have to work out with, like that. I said, that's all I'm wanting, like that. Well, these guys were pretty loyal guys. I mean, they was constantly, we was working out like, 2-3 times a week. They was coming over, and I had my dining room fixed up like a little dojo. But anyways, she had said that, and I said, no. I said, no, we're just, a group of guys that get together, and I'll just work with them, and I take them to competition, and, give me somebody to work out with. Well, as soon as I said that, one of the guys spoke up and said, "Well, hey, Ron, if you want me to pay you, I don't have a problem with that." He said, "We're using your air conditioning, your electricity, and that type of thing." He said, "Your knowledge of what you know, and you got us going to competition. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today, as far as martial arts goes." And I said, "Well, I don't really think, no, I don't really need to do, you guys don't need to do that." Like that. And another one spoke up and said, "Ron, I don't feel like right coming over here and doing this." And I was like, "Yeah, he's got it to right." And next thing you know, everybody started stepping up to the plate and saying, "Hey, whatever you think is right, you're wrong. We'll be happy to, take care of it." God, I had like 10 guys in there, 9, 10 guys in that room with me. And every one of them was agreeing with each other about, pay me. And I'm like, no, no. I'm refusing and stuff like that. And now they're insisting that they're going to help out regardless, just name my price. And I was kind of like, I don't know, 25 a month, maybe, like that. And they said, "Hey, not a problem, not a problem." They say, these guys are walking over to their gym bags and they're grabbing the wallet and they're pulling out $25. And I even remember one guy pulled out a 50 and he said, "Here, I'll pay for 2 months, for last month and this month," like that. And I said, "No," I said, "I got 25 here. I'll just, give you back 25. And before I realized, I think I had like $250, $300 in my hand. And to be honest about it, yeah, I could have used it, to pay an electric bill or something. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, but uh, but like I say, it's like, wow. And I'm looking at, my wife now was just dating at the time. I'm looking at her like, wow, look at this, that type of thing. I'm thinking to myself, I'm kind of glad she said something, But I looked at everybody and I was like, "Are you guys sure?" Yeah, well, yeah, next month we'll do the same thing. We'll just start doing it every month, start at the first of the month. So I'm like, "Oh, all right, guys." Well, that's when I started kind of, looking at it even a little bit different way. And then I started thinking to myself, after a while, I started thinking, I really wouldn't mind opening up a school. So that was my goal, to start working on opening up a school. I did, went in partners with a guy. Uh, he was Taekwondo, black belt Taekwondo, 5th degree black belt Taekwondo. And him and I went in together and opened up a school here in Pittsburgh. But the guys I took, I ended up losing them because they felt like that they were having another style, excuse me, another style of martial arts pushed on them that they really just didn't want to do. They wanted just to do Kenpo and wanted me and me only. And I was, telling them, "Well, you don't have to, if you want to, you can't. The option's there, to train another art, they're like, no, no." Well, I ended up losing those guys. And it was like within 3 months, I lost them. And I was like, wow, this ain't good at all. And I went to him and basically hat in hand. I told him, I said, "Look, I can't do this no more." I said, "I came here with the like tier 11 guys." And I said, "I don't have anybody now." I said, "So I can't afford to be pulling money out of my pocket to be doing this here." I said, "So I'm going to have to bow out and go home." Like, and he understood. He understood where I was coming from. He only had just a few students himself, and they were just mainly foster kids that he had. Money out of his pocket to take care of that too. And I told him, I said, "Look, I feel like I'm abandoning you but I just can't do this." And he said, "No," he said, "Ron," he said, "We'll be friends." He said, "No hard feelings." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that." I went back home. Within about 2 weeks, I started having knocks at my front door, and opened it up, and it was my guys coming back to me. And I was like, guys, when I got them all back within a couple of weeks, something 2 or 3 weeks, I had them all back, and I told them, guys, I said, you didn't have to quit like that on me, And they just said, well, we felt like that we was being pushed into somewhere that you really didn't want to do. We want you and you only. And I was like, well, that's fine. So that's fine. We could do this. I said, but I just want you guys to know that you really didn't have to do that. We could have stayed up there too, like that. And they said, well, we just felt, and all of them was, we had the meeting, all of us together when they all came back. And they just said, well, we like what we're doing right here with you at your home. We know that we're getting you and 100% you. We know that we're helping you out with your bills here at home, that kind of thing. And I was like, well, I appreciate you guys looking out for me like that. Because like I say, at that time, I was a single parent with 2 little guys. I mean, they was kindergarten and second grade. Marcus and Matt at that time, and my 2 middle sons. I had 4 boys total. They were like 2 middle ones. So that happened, and we went back to, teaching there. Then I moved to another house, and they followed me over there. And then I moved to another house here in Pittsburgh, and they followed me over there. And then I gained more students because my garage I was teaching out of was a lot bigger. And sometimes I wish I was still back at that place right there, because that garage, you could look from the outside, it looked like a house with a garage. But as soon as you stepped in that back door, it formed right into a martial arts school. And I had quite a few students come through there, but produced a couple of black belts out of there. We got kind of involved in mixed martial arts a little bit. Had one of the black belts come and ask me about it, and I told him, I don't know about it. He said, well, if I could set up a meet where I could compete in the cage, will you train me for it? And I said, well, yeah. Well, we started doing that, and him and I one day just happened to go down to the radio station that was here in Pittsburgh at the time, and we was looking through the window at the DJ, and she seen us looking out, and she waved us in. So we go and we start talking to her. She got the radio going, and we introduced ourselves and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, you're Ron White. White's Kenpo. And I said, yeah, have you heard of me? She goes, yeah. She says, everybody talks about you here in Pittsburgh. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. She goes, well, let's sit down here. Let me give you a plug. And I'm like, okay. So we sit down, and she interviewed us, and we talked for a little while, and she invited me back. So a couple of days down the road, I slide in there, and she's got me in there and talking to me again, and I left, and about a week later, I go back again, and she pulls me in, and I'm thinking, I'm kind of onto something here. I'm getting a little bit of free advertisement here. So I was kind of like, oh, okay. So I went over and I started getting a little bit of free advertisement, and I thought, well, no, I need to, back off away from that. That's just not right. So I started pulling away and quit going up there, that type of thing. Then I had a real good friend of mine by the name of Professor Ike Crossman, who is a subscript black belt and in the Kaki Jiu-Jitsu. And he was a DJ there, and that's how I met him. And he'd come over to my dojo here in Pittsburgh, the one I had in my garage, and God, him and I would work out on, for hours, just work out for hours. And he would show me Kaki Jiu-Jitsu, and I'd work with him in Kenpo. And I had another friend by the name of Master Rick Pulley. He'd like my brother. Him and I had known each other like 30, 35 years. Him and I trained together in Korean Kukso for a little while. And him and I when my kids would go to school and his kids would go to school, him and I would go to the Korean Salon school because he had a key to it. And we'd go in there and we'd train for like 5, 6, 7 hours a day and then go home and take care of our kids and maybe go back to class that night. Well, we would go back to class that night if class was going on. But he was a black belt taekwondo, so I learned a little bit of taekwondo through, we both studied in Korean Salon together, and he got a brown black. I ended up getting my red through and with Professor Ike Crossman, he was showing me Kaka Jiu-Jitsu, and working out with him got 4 or 5 hours, 3 or 4 times a week, that type of deal. Him being a DJ there. Well, he got surprised, Professor Crossman kind of surprised me one night because I had an issue with one of my black belts here in Pittsburgh. And I mean, it was really a big deal. And me and my wife one day was out in Joplin, Missouri shopping, and we came back home that evening. As I was driving down the road, one of the main roads here in Pittsburgh, I had a few friends that I knew that was pulling up beside me and hollering at me. And I drove down the window, hey, man, what's up? And they're down there like, hey, the Big Kahuna, which is Professor Crossman, that's his radio name, Big Kahuna, he's on the radio asking anybody if they have seen you to tell you to come up to the radio station. He wants to talk to you. He can't get a hold of you. Because at that time, I didn't actually have a cell phone at that time. I had a landline. And they said, you want to talk to you? I'm like, oh, okay. And I had like a couple of people do that. I was driving. So my wife worked at Sonic at the time, and a couple of my boys worked at Sonic at the time. And I took her up there so we can get a couple of drinks. I was going to bring her home and drop her off and then go up there and see what's up with Professor Crossman. And when I pulled up there, one of my boys came walking out and he goes, hey, Dad, have you talked to Ike today? And I said, no, I haven't. Why? I said, I got a couple people that rolled down the windows at me telling me that he's wanting to talk to me. And he said, yeah. He said, he's on the radio and he's talking about you, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but he's talking about you and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, really? And he says, yeah. He says, it's about a cage match between you and him. And I was like, cage match? And he said, yeah, you might want to go talk to him. So I said, okay. So I went down, I came home, I dropped my wife off at home, and I went down there, and I didn't go inside because he had the sign up, the light on saying, on air. And I was standing there looking through the door at him, and he done his little rock and roll spiel and spun a record, and hit the button, and music started playing, and he turned on the on air all sign off, the light off by the door, and he said, come in. So I went in there, and he goes, brother. He says, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? What's up? He goes, look at this. And I looked down a piece of paper, and he had tally marks on there. And I said, what's going on? He said, I just heard the stuff about you a couple of days ago. He said, it just pissed me off for you. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, you're a black belt you're having problems with? And he says his name. I said, yeah. He said, well, there were some people that was just running their mouth off about you and him. And in front of me, he said, it pissed me off for you. He said, I already talked to Brandon, and then Brandon happened to be the guy who owned Cage of Honor back in the day. And he said that, and I told Brandon, if I can get you to agree with it and get this particular guy to agree with it, we could probably sell 50 to 100 more tickets alone here for that fight. And I said, for the fight? And he said, yeah. He said, I got one question to ask you. If you can get him in a cage match, would you accept it? And I said, oh, hell yes. I said, I don't want him in a point fight because all it is a glorified game of tag. And I said, and I don't want him. I said, he does not want me on the street. I said, because there's nobody there to pull me off of him. So the best place he can get me is in the cage because there's going to be somebody there to pull me off of him. I said, because I get my mitts on him, I'm going to break him. That's all there is to it. I'm breaking him. And he goes, okay. He says, so you set the fight. I said, yeah, if you can get him in a ring. I said, I'll start training tonight. I'll start losing weight and everything for this fight because I'm gonna have to lose weight and to meet with him when it's not gonna let it happen because I'm a little bit bigger than he. Well, I'm a lot bigger than he is as far as weight wise. And I said, yeah, no problem. And I said, well, what's he telling March? And he goes, well, this is, and about that time the phone ring. And he said, hang on a minute. And he goes, he got on the phone, he done his little spill. Hey, this is the Big Kahuna 991 radio stage. What can I do for you, brother? And this guy started talking. He goes, wait a minute, hang on. And he flipped a switch and it came over the speakers. And there was this guy on there saying, I would love to see that fight between Ron White and this particular guy. He said, it would be a great match to see, even though that guy can't hold a candle to Ron. Like that, he said, I know Ron. I've seen him fight on the street. And he said, Ron would tear him up. And he goes, so you think that you would love to see that fight? And he said, yes, I would. He said, so you think Ron would win? He said, yes. And he worked on when he put a tally mark down on that paper. And he said, oh, brother, thanks for calling. Now I'm ready to say blah, blah, blah. And he hung up like that. And I said, what's it? And I had like 10 or 15 tally marks that I would win. And he had one. And then we had one for the good Lord that we need to accept the Lord. Well, I've already accepted the Lord. So that right there is a given. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's what this is about. Another phone call came in, same thing. And I was like, wow, these people are wanting to actually see this fight happen. And I told him, I said, well, if you can get him to agree to it, then I don't have a problem with it. I'll be more than happy to get in that ring with him. I ended up leaving. He called me a couple of days later and he goes, well, brother, they turned it down. And I said, what do you mean, Brandon and them turned it down? He goes, no, Cage of Honor wants to see it happen. He said, but he said that he had to talk to his instructor, his new instructor, and his instructor told him no, that he couldn't do it. And I looked at him and I said, no, his instructor didn't tell him not to do it. He just knows better. He don't want to get in the ring. He knows better. And so that didn't happen. In which, I'm kind of glad it didn't happen because I didn't want to start training that hard to try to lose all that weight. It's hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can relate.
It's even harder as you get older. But yeah, as far as my journey goes, with that trophy and the sunlight gleaming on it, like it was, I just felt like that maybe that was my sign that I needed to stay involved with it, teach that type of thing. I did have a girlfriend a long time ago. Her and my mother was talking, and my mother told her that she wished that I would quit with the martial arts thing and go get a job and start doing that, as far as trying to rely on the martial arts stuff. And her reply to my mother was, well, Ronnie's good at it. That's the one thing that Ronnie can do for the rest of his life that gives him peace, that makes him happy because he's good at it. She said that right there, he feels good being able to help other people to learn how to defend themselves, or maybe just sit down and talk to somebody and try to help them keep them out of trouble, that type of thing. She said, well, yeah, I understand that, but he really needs to get out and get him an actual paying job. Which Mama was right. I needed to do that because I was really trying to make martial arts my living. It is a lifestyle for me. It is my life, my way of life. But in a place where I'm at right now, and I've been there, like I say, for 30, 35 years. I'm not going anywhere. I'm 64 years old. I'm not going anywhere. You can't make a living here or something like that. I know there's a lot of people out there in bigger cities that are struggling, trying to make a living at it, that type of thing. Some of them even got jobs. Excuse me. That actually got jobs themselves, that type of thing, to bring in that extra income. And there's some of them are just downright successful at it that don't have to have that extra job to bring that extra income in, that type of thing. They're doing great. I wished I was one of those guys, but I'm not. So I I teach for free. I am they call it security, but I really don't call it. I was a so-called security guard at a bacon plant called Sugar Creek Packing here in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Uh, Me and my youngest son both work out there. He's been out there 10 years. I've been out there almost 15. I work in the guard shack all day long. I'm checking in truck drivers in and out, visitors in and out, stuff like that, that type of thing. I don't work with really nobody. I don't have nobody looking over my shoulder. I can go to the bathroom when I want and don't have to have permission like a little kid, or, I can eat as much as I want. And that's the problem right there, because it's a bacon factory and they cook bacon all the time. So I'm hungry all the time. And you're
Oh, I
talking
hear
to a
you.
guy
I
that
hear
does
you.
like cheeseburgers and chocolate malt.
In a similar boat.
So, yeah. So I do that. That does measure income. But like I say, where I'm at right now, I'm down in my basement at home. As you can see around me, um, this is my workout room. I've got approximately 4 students that I do teach for free, and all I require of them is them being members of the RKCA, which they are. Um, that being said, I enjoy doing what I'm doing. Like I told Dave and Steve, and I told a couple of my students, I really don't want another school, to be honest about it, because that overhead you got. I mean, you're just not an instructor. You're everything. You're the bookkeeper. You're the janitor. You're the instructor. You're this. You're that. Blah blah blah. You're a counselor, which I don't mind the counselor part. I really just don't, because there has been times that I've been talking to somebody and they're like, man, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to just kick this guy's butt, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what, man, I would too if I was you, but here's the thing though, man. It's kind of like the bully at school. They never see the bully doing the actual provoking the action. It's always the person that reacts that gets caught. That's what's going to happen to you, man. You jump on that dude and you kick the crap out of somebody that dude, you got the cops knocking on your front door. And you're going to jail for whatever reason, assault or whatever. Maybe it just went south, though, and you accidentally killed that dude. Come on, man. Is it really worth it? I can't think of it, and they'd look at me and go, yeah. Yeah, is it really worth it? So, sitting down and actually talking to somebody, listening to what they got to say. Maybe they just need to get something off their chest. They just need it. They just need an ear to talk to. I enjoy doing that with them. Just let them talk. Just let them talk. Then a lot of times, when somebody talk, you end up learning a lot about them too. That type of thing. Just listen to them. I was a bounty hunter for 11 years, and there's a lot of times that I go question somebody. I just ask them a couple of questions and then let them talk. A lot of times they're telling you something they don't realize they're telling you. They don't realize that. And that's a lot of times a lot of people. But like I say, I teach for free. I love coming down here in my basement. working out, myself. I got my setup down here now and everything. Big screen TV down here. I can come down here and I can flip through Facebook or YouTube or whatever and find different material. Hey, I like the way that guy is doing that. That's kind of cool. I call my son Mitch down there. Hey, Mitch, come here. He'll come down here and I'll say, check this out, blah, blah, blah. And we'll go back and forth and we'll kind of work on something. That type of thing, what's your joint lock or flip, throw, whatever. That type of thing. As far as kicking ability, I don't really worry about the kicking. I can't kick very high anymore because of my hips and knees. So if I want to kick somebody in the head, I'll bring their head to my feet and kick them somehow. I don't kick very high anymore. Getting too old for that business. I got these to do that business, and I got these for them over. So I'll just work it that way. But as far as the journey goes at Kenpo, I just feel like that Kenpo is my mother art, even though I step outside the box, look at other things and talk to other people I know and have them show me certain things. They'll do something. I go, hey, I kind of like that. Show me how to do that. That type of thing. I'll pick their brain, that type of thing like that. And then I try to filter it into Kenpo just a little bit.
Let me go ahead and jump in here. I love the story. I love your journey. I love your passion for teaching. As I say with pretty much all my guests, there's so many things that we could get into, but we can't have a 12-hour show. So we're gonna and so I definitely give you an open invite to be back on. We can get into more items of your journey here, but we're gonna go ahead and move into what I call our lightning round here. I got a few questions for you as we kind of head towards to wrapping up here. So the first question being, do you have a favorite technique?
Favorite technique? Well, to be honest, I really don't think I do. Are there techniques out there that just fall into place or smooth to me and they just happen? Yeah, there's quite a few of them. But as far as actual favorite technique, I don't believe I've ever actually had one. Like a lot of people do, and I've heard that question before, and I've heard people say, yeah, I like this particular technique, blah, 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 and this is my favorite one, but I really don't believe I do.
Not a problem.
Really
it's probably about 50-50 with my guest. It's like trying to pick your favorite child. Can't do that. So I like it. Good answer. Yeah. Next question: do you have a favorite form and or set?
I've always been kind of fond of form short form 3 of American Kenpo. I was doing that form one time years ago in competition, and there was another instructor that was in judge me that he was in Aikido. Yeah, he was an instructor in Aikido, but he knew about Kenpo form stuff, but he tainted my form that day because I did it in the black belt division, because that form right there is a championship type form. It doesn't have to do with what belt level is at. And when you're in competition to begin with, you don't judge what belt level it is. You judge on how good it is, how good they've done it, and whatever the case may be on that part. But this guy, he upset me that day, and I said something, but he immediately turned around and said, wait a minute, that's a green belt form, isn't it? That's a American Kenpo green belt form, isn't it? Like that, and he was tainting my form for what he was doing, me, and And he kept saying it over and over. And finally, I looked at him. I said, "Excuse me, sir. I do respect. It has nothing to do with what belt level that particular form did. It's about how well it was done, and that's where you need to judge it, not by looking at each judge and saying that was a green belt form. Because what you're doing now is you're tainting my form here with these other judges to where they're going to make a decision that, oh, that's not a black belt form, and he needs to be doing a black belt form, not a green belt form. So therefore, my score is going to be low because of what you said to him. And I told him that. And these other two judges just kind of looked at me and looked at him and kind of shook their head like, yeah, he's right. That type of deal. And I just looked at him and I said, "Thank you very much, judges. Have a good day." And I bowed out and I just turned and walked off. Because to me, he did what he wanted to do. But as far as the form goes, I've always been fond of short form 3 in the American Kenpo system. Now the IKCA form, it's a long form. I'm not going to say it's not. It's a long one, and you really got to have some cardio for that booger. I like it. I'm not going to say I don't, because it's a mass attack form. But it is a long puppy, a long one, and it wears me out. Like I say, I'm 54 years old. It's hard for me to get through that form when I was younger. Yeah, not a problem. We would go to competition, and I had one junior black belt. He did form pretty good. He wasn't the best at no, but he was pretty decent at it. And he would do that form all the way through. And I had to tell him, "Look, only do this much of the form, because there was one judge, every time he come in, he goes, 'Oh, here's this kid again. It's a long form.' Like that." And I was hearing this and I was like, "Oh, okay, well, this is like the second, third time I've heard this before." And I'm like, okay. So I just went to the kid and I said, "Here," I said, "that only do this form up to this part right here. Go ahead and call it form 6, whatever, mass attack form 6, but only do it up to this part right here." He said, "Yes, sir." So he go out and do it. He still took first place, that type of thing. But that one judge, or one time he did say, "Here we go again. This is going to be a long form." Like that type of thing. Like, yeah, we only did maybe half of it. And he was like, "Oh, okay.
Very nice.
Surprise."
Very nice. All right. The next question, do you have a favorite weapon?
I've liked the nunchucks. As a kid growing up, Bruce Lee, nunchucks. Yeah, I liked the nunchucks. That's always been my weapon. Where's the nunchucks? Mess around with them. Don't mess with them as much as I used to when I was younger, but yeah, I was not nunchucks like that. Did work a lot of staff with staff set. Obviously, teaching staff set that Mr. Sullivan came up with back in his day. Always teach that, but it'd be nunchucks. And I'd have to say the screamer sticks would be next after that. And that's my screamer sticks. My screamer sticks. Work up a little bit of those. Jess Bigman. Yeah. Like the way he works it. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's go for it. Screamer sticks now. So I work with the screamer sticks a little bit. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. That type of deal. 5 swords. I work with 5 swords on it and stuff, trying to, get that circular motion on striking. Not a big type sword, just a nice little popping with them. Get that jab in there with it, stab them with it. And I do work with knives a little bit, because a knife, I carry a knife with me everywhere I go, even at work, because you never know what something might happen. Now, I am going to say that when I'm off work and I go out in public, me and my wife are together out in public, I do carry a firearm with me because the way certain things are going in life right now. But I do have an ass with expendable baton. I do have a couple of those in my car, and I got them sitting. I got a short one and I got a long. Where I usually put my pistol. But I got it up there just in case I need to grab that and kind of pop somebody in the window or something like that. That's the thing. Maybe my wife needs to grab it or something. Because like I say, with today's day and age, you just don't know what's going to happen with these tools out here now. So again, the expendable ass goes along with the screamer sticks. Like I said, I carry my knife with me. In case something happens, I need to, need my knife to help me out in my defense. If somebody pulls a gun in, I run like hell. Type of thing. We do have a couple of self-defense technique. One against the knife, one against the gun. And I always say, I've had them ask me, "Did you guys have any knife and gun self-defense technique?" So yeah, actually, we got 2 in our system. I said, but I teach 4, and they say, "You teach 4?" And I said, "Yeah." The 4 that I teach are the 2 that's in the system, the knife and gun, etc. But the other 2 I teach is run. Because if you go up against a knife, more likely, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get cut. Go up against a gun, good chance you're going to get killed. You're not Superman, so run. So those are my 2 self-defense techniques from each one of those that I will say to you and teach you. There's run. So you pretty much will know that and it's how to do it like
Very
run.
nice.
So, but as far as the massive one goes, I do like it. I like it.
Very good,
I mean, it's a good cardio.
All right. Our final question here is if there's anyone that you could train with, living or dead, fictional or non-fictional, besides Ed Parker, who would that be? Yeah, it's a Kenpo show, so I have to take Ed Parker off the table.
Ed Parker, yeah. Right.
Oh, excellent!
I think Dave
excellent.
Santos would be a good one.
He's often brought up in with previous guests. So yeah, he's definitely one of the legends for sure.
Yeah. Another one, I mean, passed away, it'd be Paul Mills. Yeah, that guy's got extra hard. I watch a lot of his stuff. It's like, bow, bow, bow. I just, the way he solidifies his base upon the impact of his striking is like just phenomenal. It's like, man, one strike,
exactly,
boom, and you're down.
Exactly.
I like that.
Very nice, very nice. Good, great answers. I like it. I like it. All right. So our final piece of business for today is going to be the shameless self-promotion. So you can plug anything that you'd like, or if there's anything else that you wanted to get out there for today, you have the floor, and then we will close out from there.
Yeah. Like I said, my name is Seafood Ron White. I'm a 5th degree black belt with the International Karate Connections Association, certified instructor through them, as well as a 10th degree black belt and underneath Supreme Grandmaster Willie Parks and Kenpo Goju-Ryu. And I teach White Kenpo in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Right now, I am teaching for free. So if you're living in the Pittsburgh, Kansas area, you might want to get a hold of me. I'm not really hard to find. You can go out to Sugar Creek Packing and you'll find me out there at the guard shack. I'm out there quite a bit. My second home, honestly. But if you know somebody who knows me, maybe you can get my phone number from them. It's 620-249-1881. If I don't answer, leave a voicemail. I'll get back with you because a lot of times if I don't recognize the phone number, I will not answer because of spam, that type of deal. But leave a message. I'll contact you back. Been teaching in Pittsburgh, Kansas for quite a while now, about 30 years plus. Had a couple of schools. Taught the Lincoln Center for 11 years down there. Me and my son Mitchell. Might want to throw a little plug out there for Mitchell. Mitchell is a fighting forms and weapons forms champion. He helps me teach a lot. He's been by my side for day one, back when he was a baby. He learned how to count and how to kind of talk because I had him as a baby in a baby strap in front of me as I teach class for my wife was cooking dinner. So I'd take him, I'd put him right here, and I would teach class. I even sparred with him right here a couple of times. Used him for protection. No, but yeah, but I'd had him right here while teaching class. That's old baby, that type of deal. So he was born into the martial arts, and he still does it today. He's 28 years old, 5th-degree black belt through White's Kenpo, and he's got a brown belt through the International Karate Connection
Very nice.
Association as well.
Very, very nice, very nice, very nice.
And that should
Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to be on and sharing your story. Like I mentioned, you have an open invitation to be back on again. We'll definitely have to have you on again to get into more items in your journey. But yeah, I just thank you so much for being on and sharing your story. And I'm excited to get this out for the listeners to hear. And we will keep an eye on what you're up to, and we'll have to do this again. So thank you.
All right. Thank you for inviting me on. I sure appreciate it.